Well, let's see. We had a mutual friend in the Air Force in San Bernardino, and she came down to visit me, and she brought Jennie along and a couple other people, and that's how we met. She introduced us, and I just thought she was the cutest little thing I'd ever seen. So that's basically what we met. And then next week, I guess we had a little went out to the Star Room or did something like that. So that's pretty much it. I know when Jennie tells it, it's a lot more exciting and longer, but
Yeah, she did kind of simplify it. But I was with these people going up to meet Pat because I was coming off of a really bad experience of my first, and it was a real heartbreaker. So I was wanting to run. So I went with these people to meet this Pat. I don't know who she was. So when we met Pat, she was living with a friend of hers, Janet, and I looked at the both of them and I thought, oh, that blonde one was Pat. She's kind of cute, you know. I said, well, that's the way it goes. I wasn't talking, I wasn't doing anything. I was just kind of moping around. And when we left, Louise, the lady that mutual friend, she says, hey, Jennie, Pat thinks you're cute. And I was just terribly indignant. I said, well, that's just tough. I'm not interested in any of that sort of thing.
Even though you found her cute.
I thought she was cute, but that was it. Oh. So the next week, Louise tells me again, she says, well, we're going up to, we've been invited to a party. And I says, oh, okay, I'll go with you if Dee goes along. She was another friend of ours because I didn't want to be a third wheel. So, okay, Dee was going to go with us. And we get up to Pat's place, and we walked in. And I said, well, we sat down, and she sat down, and about 15, 20 minutes later, she said, well, where's the party? And Pat looks over, she says, I'm it. I thought, what is this? And we ended up going to the Star Room. And she asked me to dance a couple of times, and then the music stopped, and we were standing out on the floor, and she says, why don't we just stay here and hug? I was getting kind of interested. So that's kind of how we met.
So now I would love you to tell the story, even though you've told me before, about how you went AWOL because of Pat, which she still seems flattered about to this day.
Well, I had gotten out of the service and went back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Wauwatosa, where I was born and raised, and I was bored. This was not for me anymore. I had gone beyond Milwaukee. I wanted something else now. So I re-enlisted in the Air Force, and I re-enlisted in Illinois. And when I was in, I thought, they told me I was going to be going to Germany. In fact, when I re-enlisted, that's what I re-enlisted for. I was going to go to Germany. So I was looking forward to that. Because it was going to be several weeks before that I was due to ship out, I took leave to go to California to see some old friends. And that's when I met Pat, and that's when this friend, Louise, had taken me up to Long Beach and met Pat. So by the time I left Long Beach, after that second party, I was smitten. So I get back to Illinois, and I thought, I got to go all the way to Germany, and I'm going to be there for 18 months at least, and I know she's going to forget about me. I just know it. But we were writing letters back and forth. There I am at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois, writing love letters to somebody in California. Well, I dropped one of those letters that I was going to mail, and I panicked. I thought, if they get a hold of that letter and open it up and read, I'm going to be toast. And my whole Air Force career is going to be shot. plus outing Pat, who worked for Rockwell International at the time, and don't know if they would have thought too kindly about having a lesbian working for
It
them.
wouldn't have mattered.
I didn't know that because I thought it was a very important government job that she had. So,
Excuse me.
so I called Pat and I was panicky. I said, this is what happened, and I went AWOL. I got on a train and came out to California. And I had known her 3 days in California before I went back to Illinois, and that's as long as I'd known her. And I just left the Air Force just like it was nothing. I left Germany. I didn't get to go to Germany, but Pat promised that one day she would take me to Germany. And she did.
I thought I had a potential husband for her lined up, but that didn't pan out. But a friend of ours in Pasadena,
Yeah.
Harriet lived in Pasadena. She said, "Oh, I got a guy. We'll talk to him." So we went to dinner at her house, and Terry said, "Lloyd, how would you like to get married to Jenny?" He said, "Sure."
He
And
was
this
a
the
gay
gay
guy.
man.
He was
Yeah.
a gay guy, yeah.
And it would have looked good for him because he was trying or in a management position.
We went to Las Vegas to get married. I went home on the way back, and a couple of days later, I was going to turn myself in to the Air Force because, all right, now I'm married and I can get out on marriage, you know. So I was going to turn myself in on Monday. Well, Sunday, Pat and I were coming home from somewhere in her little white Corvair, which was very easy to spot. And whoo, here comes the police. Oh my God. And they stopped our car and they looked at Pat and then they looked at me and they looked right through Pat and looked at me and says, "Are you Virginia?" Oh my God. Yes. And he says, "Come with us." And I said, wait a minute. Can I go back to the house and get my purse? Because he says, you're AWOL. And I thought, oh my God, you know, this was the Long Beach police that picked me up. And I thought, oh my God. So they took me, they wouldn't let me go into the house. And what they had done is they'd gone to the house because they were looking for me. I had left a letter that I was going to mail to Pat. I had torn it up in Illinois, had torn it up through my trash. So when I went AWOL, when I went missing, they went searching through my room and they found this letter and they found Pat's address. But I had addressed it to P.A. Listen, so they didn't know it was a woman. Well, so they just traced me right to her address. So when the police came to pick me up, they just took me down to the Naval Air Station in Long Beach. And
Terminal Island, huh?
Terminal Island,
Yeah.
And
Terminal, that sounds bad.
yeah, but that was quite an experience because I was really shook up and really afraid. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. And when the police dropped me off, they just said, "Okay, she's in your hands, and this is the Navy." I didn't know anything about the Navy, and the guy looks at me and he says, I says, "Well, if you would just call Norton Air Force Base and ask for Sergeant Copeland." I says, "She's my former NCOIC," and I says that she's a friend of mine. And they said, okay, they would do that. So they got on the phone with Sergeant Copeland, and they says, "Well, we have one of your airmen up here, and she's threatening to jump out the window."
One-story building.
Yeah. I thought, oh, that was mean and hateful, you know. But they got a hold of Sergeant Copeland, and she got on the phone with her. She said, "Jenny, what did you do?" And I said, "Oh, Sergeant Copeland." I started to cry. And she says, "I'll be up there to pick you up." So she came all the way from San Bernardino to Long Beach to pick me up. And they had me in a room with a guard to make sure I didn't run away. And I thought, you know, you guys must be crazy. Where am I supposed to go, you know? So when she came in to the room, I took one look at her, and I just ran into her arms. I said, "Sergeant Copeland," and she says, "Come on," she says, "Jenny, we'll take you home." So home wasn't really Norton Air Force Base anymore, but she was so cool because she never made me talk. She never asked me any questions, nothing. She just took me back to Norton, and we made arrangements for me to go back to Illinois and face the consequences. But she was a really cool lady.
So Jenny, when you got back to Illinois, what ended up happening? Did they court-martial you?
Yes, they did. The thing is, when I was with Sergeant Copeland, she says, Jenny, she says, you have to go back to Illinois. I says, yes, I know. She said, do you want somebody to accompany you, or do you think you can get there on your own? And I says, I absolutely can get there on my own. So I talked to the commander in Illinois, and he was very nice, Christensen. And he says, are you sure you can get back here on your own? I says, absolutely. So when I got back to Illinois, I had to report into it. Report in. I said, Airman Bear, and he says, Airman, let me ask you one thing. Are you pregnant? And I says, no, sir, I'm not. And he says, the next thing is call your mother. Because when they were looking for me, that's what they did. They called my mother, and my mother was as innocent as me. And she says, oh my God, she's AWOL. Are you going to shoot her? And he laughed, and he says, Mrs. Meyer, we haven't shot any WAF in a long time. First, when I went to the court-martial board, there were a bunch of the stuffed shirts up there that these were really military guys, you know, the real tough macho ones. And they wanted to throw the book at me, which meant I was going to do 3 months at hard labor, a forfeiture of 6 months' pay, dishonorable discharge. They just threw the book at me, and I thought, oh my God, what have I done? You know, not a dishonorable, undesirable. Dishonorable, you practically have to kill somebody. Undesirable, and I thought that, I didn't want to do that. I just didn't want to do that. What choice did I have? But they knocked it all down to a general discharge, which is almost like an honorable discharge. A general discharge forfeiture of 1 month's pay, no confinement, and I could go right back to work. It was wonderful. I don't know why they did that. At first I says, can I talk to the chaplain? Because, you know, the Catholic chaplain, they can't, you can spill your beans to them and they can't say anything to anybody. And that was kind of a interesting thing too.
You did not tell a Catholic chaplain that you were lesbian and you went AWOL.
Actually, I did. Actually, well, I didn't say I was a lesbian. I didn't use those terms. I just told him that I says, I went AWOL, I says, to be with a woman. And he looked at me and he says, you're dismissed. And that was it. He knew he couldn't say anything, and I knew he couldn't say anything. I thought, oh, well, that was easy enough, you know. But it relieved a lot of tension in me, you know, so.
I thought he was, you said he was interested in
Oh, yeah, he says,
who did what.
yeah,
or
he did.
whatever.
He asked, he says, well, who's the aggressor? And I looked at him and I said, well, what does that matter? And that's when he told me, well, you're dismissed.
You're not going to tell me anything.
Apparently.
No details.
What's the
I don't want
aggressor?
details.
So that was it, but they did discharge me, but it was a general discharge. So I was there from February to August, and in August 9th, I was discharged.
So from February to August, you actually worked in the Air Force still?
Yeah, I was in the Air Force. In fact, they let me go right back to work, which I told them, please let me go back to work because I loved my job. I loved being in the Air Force, and if I could have had both, I would have been in seventh heaven. But I did choose Pat over the Air Force, and
Wow.
I have never been sorry.